Triple T, number 93. Can it be? Here you with me? Okay, I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. Yes, it is Triple T number 93, October 10th, 2023. And I almost typed in 39 because I'm still trying to wrap my head around that we're almost to 100. Yee-hoo! Yes, squirrels are running wild. And for those of you on YouTube, hi, Mom. Thank you for joining. My name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver, which I always have to follow up. No, I don't know everything. I just have this unique ability to ask questions and help people dive down, figure out where the challenges are and how to find the solutions. I also have a website, thetswb.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com. Yes, that is what it stands for. You'd be amazed at how many times I get, really? Like, 6'4", 196 pounds last I checked. I do also offer a free 30-minute consultation. That is your opportunity to spend 30 minutes on Planet TJ. Ask me anything. You're welcome to join, even if you just want to chit-chat. That is your time. But I help people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD. I work with athletes all the way up to the professional level. I do corporate coaching. Or should I say I offer corporate coaching? I've worked with yes, I help those C people, the CEOs and the COOs and the CFOs and the OOOs, and oh my gosh, because I found out when they wear pants, they put them on the same way we do. And I had to say it that way because there are plenty of ladies that are in those positions as well, and I don't want to leave them out telling them they have to wear pants because they look good in dresses as well. Now that we got that done, what else we got here? Let's see. Anybody got anything they want to share from the last time we got together and had this fun little rodeo? Mike.
I didn't know if Holly was going. Lots of good things happening. Super excited to present in Chicago next week on holographic memory resolution and its impact and how amazingly people can resolve their chronic pain through healing their memories.
And I know a little extra insight, and I'd appreciate it if you would share it with our crew.
The one that I mentioned earlier?
Yeah, that's the one you mentioned.
So a few weeks ago, I was stuck in a massive procrastination rut. You had asked at the beginning of, oh, good heavens, many, many weeks ago in January. And you had asked about our goals and what we were going to do. And one of my goals that I kept writing down was to write an ebook. And I beautifully procrastinated this for an amazing 7 or 8 months. And you were able to help me clear the blocks. And now since then, I think it was right around Labor Day, I had written one ebook over Labor Day weekend. And then I wrote my second ebook. And it's about understanding holographic memory resolution. And it's basically an introduction for people so that they can understand what it is in a user-friendly, easy-to-read way. And I had shared it with Brent Baum, the mastermind behind holographic memory resolution. And he wants to now co-author this ebook that we're going to share with as many people as possible because it's free. And that way more people have the ability to understand what it is, and more people can then even look into it or even look up the research that's on it and read those studies if they really like those things and continue to help people get better.
And where can they keep checking to see when this is available? Because I know that people are already asking, especially on YouTube, going, and where is it?
It will be on my website at dtbhorizons.com, and it'll also be on healingdimensions.com.
What does DTB stand for?
What do you think it might stand for?
Oh, I got lots of things, but
Go ahead. I want to hear. Holly, what do you think DTB stands for?
Don't touch beavers.
we gotta text your mom, see what she thinks it stands for, since she's on YouTube. Holly, what do you think DTB stands for? Don't touch beavers.
The DT sounds like it might be like deep trance something, but I don't know what the B would be.
Oh, that's a cool one too. DTB. Well, go ahead.
This is why I always ask people what you think TSWB stands for, because you'll get the answers that are outside of your thought process because you already know what it is.
That is very true. I like the ones that we've gotten so far. Oh, okay. So sidebar. I won't go on that one. But it stands for determined to be. Whatever you are determined to be and whatever horizon you are working to get to, that is what I help people do.
Dare to believe.
Oh, that's a good one. Damn. That's a good one. We got to write that one down.
This is why we ask people, tell me what you think it stands for. Ironically, I started a book and I've procrastinated way longer than you have, only by about 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. I got it started. Whoop, whoop. And, the title for the book actually came from a college or a teacher, a school teacher who was a renter in one of our rental properties. And when I asked her, what do you think TSWB stands for? She was like, no, this isn't a school test. There are no wrong answers. Nothing's too weird, too funny. And she said, well, I came up with something, but it doesn't make sense. I good. What is it? The sideways balloon. And I went, do you know how amazing a book title that is? She's like, what?
There.
I said, I used to own a photography studio. I'm a graphic artist. If I had a really cool image on a book that said the sideways balloon, would you pick it up out of curiosity? Yeah. And I would have never been able to come up with that, obviously, or I would have beat her to it. So that's why I'm trying to remember who taught me this in a marketing type class. The best way and the quickest way to build a business is to build it for sale. You will build it completely different. You will track the books completely different. You will hire differently. You will find locations for it with a different mindset, but you will also name it differently. I wish I would have, go ahead. I wish I would have known that when I had my photography studio, because my photography studio was named Photography by Todd James, which meant if I'd have built it up big enough and wanted to sell it, trying to find somebody named Todd James who's a professional photographer to buy it could be a tad challenging. But now that I have TSWB Enterprises and all of the divisions of that, TSWB Helps, TSWB sees is my photography. TSWB talks are some of the little training clips that I put out for maintenance. So when you think about that, how many different divisions could you do in DTB?
I think also when you set it up with the idea to sell, it kind of gives you a different perspective. A lot like they always say the first million is your hardest to make.
Yep.
So when you think like I'll set up, I want to make this certain amount versus when you set out to make 1 million, you think of it differently. So I'd say the same is true. When you set it up to sell it, you think of it completely differently.
Yes, and the goals. One of my clients, a corporate client of mine, came to me because he became CFO or COO of a business, and this was his 6th business that he had that title in. The other 5s he was able to bring up to quickly to 2.8 mil, and then it just like that was a glass ceiling. And of course, in the business world, I know there'll be some people out there, 2.8 million. But for some businesses, 2.8 in annual profits that's a pretty decent business. Well, with this business, their goal, they let him, once he got started, all of a sudden they had a buyer that was interested, but was only interested if they could bring up their annual profits to 10 mil. And he got all nervous because he recognized the pattern. And so we went in, we cleaned up some stuff. I also coached him on a couple of other things like doing mastermind calls at least minimum once a quarter, but not with department heads. Boots on the ground from each diverse department. I said, you're not going to do finance, and then you're not going to do HR. You're going to do a large round table, and they had 5 locations around the world. He goes, well, that's going to take a bit. I said, what is, the buyer was willing to, told him straight out, you get up to 10 mil, we're going to buy it for $100 million, that right away. I said, what's the 100 million prize worth? So he arranged it, got some pushback, but he called me the next day after they finally pulled it off and said the amount of information that we didn't know about that came out blew my mind. I said, yeah, because the boots on the ground assume that the supervisor should know, and there are challenges that HR doesn't understand with manufacturing, that doesn't understand with finance, that doesn't understand with and when all these boots on the ground started talking, and he and a few other department heads were in on the call just to listen and bring about some of the questions, the information flowed. And he said about 2 months later, I checked in, he said their efficiency increased exponentially just from that one mastermind. So have I run a multi-million-dollar business? No. But I have some questions and I have some ideas that seem to work. And he was kind enough to refer me to a few other non-competitors. So it's been fun. I enjoy that kind of stuff. That was a little squirrel run there for those of you on YouTube going, I thought we were going to talk about some. Yes, they're coming up.
I think it just definitely helps with giving a different perspective, and especially given the number of professions that you have, you definitely have lots of different perspectives. And I think people, I know for sure years ago, I would have been so quick to think that I was doing something wrong and that it meant I should be doing better. And I would not have asked what else is going on. Maybe I just don't know something and they can offer me a different perspective. And it doesn't mean that I'm bad or I'm doing something wrong. It simply means I don't know something. And just that little shift, literally a world of a difference.
Go ahead, Holly.
I was just going to say that, just kind of following the scroll even further. In my business degree, they used to talk about the importance of at least once a quarter, and doing this in your personal life and professional life, sitting down and doing an analysis of, they had a fancy name for it, but basically sitting down and looking, what are my potential risks? And you've got the obvious ones and what could be the extreme. Like, for instance, I work in parking. What if they replaced the car and nobody was driving anymore? That would be an extreme one versus, anyway. And then also look for opportunities. What opportunities are out there that I'm not currently capitalizing on? I think it's interesting, people who don't do that, when they hit bad things, they will still have an explanation. So like, for instance, we were doing it at work. I saw a big risk coming up in 5 years. And anyway, I happened to notice the year it would have hit was the year of COVID. I guarantee they would have blamed COVID for everything, not realizing that there was an inherent business problem. Yeah. And how many years it would have taken them to realize it. But because we saw it beforehand, we knew it wasn't COVID. So anyway.
Yeah. Who's the expert? How many times have you guys heard me ask this? It's not the person with the most wallpaper. It's not the person with the highest rank in the business. It's simply the person that is half a step ahead of the thought process of the rest of them, who's not afraid to speak up. Yeah. So that kind of started the meeting a little early. Shall we dive into this week's topics that dropped down from above? Ones that I came up with are: when you get what you asked for, count to 5, and best case scenario. And when you get what you asked for, a lot of these will come from working with my clients. And a lot of my clients right now, ironically, are, well, not ironically, I guess the universe is throwing them this way, are in the wait to date protocol relationship stuff. And part of the wait to date protocol is I have them write down a journal. Actually, now it's morphed into 3 journals. Who's your partner? Who's your tribe? What's your income? And I made very certain not to name it, what is your profession? What's your income? And starting to document, what does that income look like? How does it come in? What is your projected level of income for this year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How many streams of income do you have? Most people don't realize that the average millionaire has around 7 streams of income. And the 9-to-5ers are wondering why they can't become millionaires. And so where it turns into when you get what you asked for, I've also noticed that when they get what they think is what they asked for, they focus on, well, this is it. This is the one. Especially dates and the wait to date protocol. And I'm like, you still have time left on your wait to date protocol. But he's perfect. No, he's only the best one you've met so far. But we're committed. Oops. You still have 6 months to go before you can get committed. You need to be testing. You need to step back a bit and test to see if there's any flags out there, and continually work on your journal of who this person is. Continue to evaluate and research everybody around you to see if there's anything that needs to be added to the journal. And a lot of them are also noticing, as they work on themselves, they're starting to attract new people into their tribe, which is why I tell them to write a journal about their tribe so that they can make sure that they're attracting who they need to help improve who they are. It's been said many times, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, a handful of them have all said, I don't even have to meet you. All I have to do is hang out with the 5 people you hang out with the most, and I can tell you who you are. I can tell how much you make. I can tell your lifestyle, a bunch of your beliefs. And so if nothing changes, guess what? Nothing changes. And you're going to have to be willing to manifest and move upward and forward. Everybody's in your life for a reason, a season, or a lesson. Again, people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lesson. And I've got a number of people that I'm pining for that were in my life for a short time and made a big impact. But when I look at it, they were in for a lesson and a season. And I don't know why the season ended. And I didn't burn the bridges. That's one thing that I also make it very clear with people. You don't have to burn the bridge just because you've moved to a different tribe. If you're the smartest person in the room, it's time to find a better room. And then when you become the smartest person in that room, Guess what time it is? Time to upgrade. Whee! And if they want to follow you, that's fine. But don't let them hold you back and hold you there. When you get what you asked for, test it, evaluate it. Look at your list. That's why I have them do the journal. Because, like Lenora posted here, it's definitely a challenge. Those feel-good hormones turn people fast. Oh yeah, rose-colored glasses. Woo, got the goodies. But as we know, unfortunately, those things wear off after a while. And too many times by then they've put a big label on it. We're a couple, we're committed, this is my boyfriend, girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And then they feel they've got too much invested to go look again for what they really want. And my one client went on a wonderful 2-week, woohoo! Holy cow, this is it. This is the one. Life is amazing. And then he took off his king costume and turned out to be a 10. Oh! Devastation sets in. And I said, no. Thank them for 2 weeks of amazing memories and a lifetime of lesson. What'd you learn from the 2 weeks? Also, how much effort and time did it take to meet that person? A couple of weeks ago, I did a talk on who manifested who. Guess who inspired that? Sitting at home, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go out. Something told me I should go out. Walked into the bar, and there they were, with a beam of light directly from the skies right on them, and they glowed. But because she'd done enough inner work, she had the posture to wait a bit, walk up and go, hey, if you're not married, you're going to dance with me. And walk away, leaving him went back with her friends and they're like, why don't you go talk to him? I did. Like, yeah, but yeah, no, I'm not chasing him. I'm the prize. I'm the queen. Finally, he got the signal from the universe, went up and talked, and they danced and spent 2 weeks in sheer bliss. It was wunderbar. And then all of a sudden, the red flags started popping up. And she started getting worried. Oh, but, there's this red flag. And then there's Jade, who's definitely not a red flag. And I had to remind her, you've got what you've been asking for but you're not done asking. You still have 2 months left. And this is only the best you've had so far. Said you have 8 weeks left. How much time, amazing time, did you enjoy with this person? 2 weeks. I went, potentially you could have 4 more of these if you wanted, or 3 or 2. And as long as you keep testing and keep putting the bar higher, each one will potentially be the best one you've had so far. Lenora, you had your hand up?
Did you say that before? So you got what you were asking for, but you're not done asking yet?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear that part, and I just heard it now, and wow.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
How
Huge.
hard was it to manifest what you asked for? But you're not done asking. That's one of the problems people have with manifesting. They're so afraid they might get it, and what if I don't? What if I don't like it? Well, then don't stop asking. It's the best you got so far. It's not like, if somebody needs a car and they magically manifest the car they want, and then they realize, well, I've always wanted a Corvette, then I manifested one, but I realized I can't haul anything in it. Now what do I do? Now I'm stuck with a Corvette. No, you sell the Corvette and you manifest something that's a better fit. You don't have to stop asking. It's only the best you've had so far. Any questions, ahas, epiphanies on that?
I'm always jumping in. But something else that occurred to me too is sometimes we put too much meaning when we see signs or manifestation or something like that. So like, for instance, in that particular scenario, if you're with somebody for 2 weeks, maybe those 2 weeks you were supposed to have them. Maybe you learned something and became somebody new in those 2 weeks. It reminds me of a story one of my teachers once told us, that he had this feeling that he needed to call this girl that he had dated a long time back in like high school. They were in college now. Anyway, he calls her up and they go on the best date he's ever been on. She admitted it was the best date she'd ever been on. He said it was the best date he ever had. And he spent the night thinking, wow, I've met my future wife. Look at all the signs of the universe. And then a week later, he found out she was engaged. And the thing is, at the time, it didn't make sense to him. But he says, looking back on it, first of all, he knows that he learned a lot from that experience. When he met his person, he realized she wasn't his person. But after talking to her, what was going on in her life is that she had met her person. And he was humming and hawing and dragging his feet, wondering if he wanted to be with her. And seeing her have the best date ever with another guy made him realize, if I don't step up, I'm going to lose her. So, we don't always necessarily know the purpose, but that doesn't mean there isn't an amazing purpose.
A reason, a season, or a lesson. Anything else? Any other questions on this before we shift topics? See if I can actually do 3 in a again tonight. Yes? No? We're good? Count to 5. Who counted to 5 on Sesame Street? Is that the count? 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5. Yeah. This one's going to be super quick. It's just a quick reminder of, regardless of who it can, and it can be anybody, Easy ways to express how you feel about somebody. 5, how can I help you? Again, how can I help you? 4, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. 3, I love you. I love you. 2, thank you. What's 1? And you can make up your own list, but it's this easy. We. We can make it through all sorts of stuff. We can work as a team. We can bounce ideas off each other. We can make it through the lows. We can celebrate the highs. We. So I'll go through it one more time. 5, how can I help you? 4, I'm proud of you. 3, I love you. 2, thank you. 1, we. That could also be we. Depends on who you're with. I think you all know me well enough. A lot of times it will be we. Anything you guys would like to add to that one?
I love those phrases. I had to step away for a quick second. What was the entrance of that? 5 things to do, 5 phrases.
These are just 5 easy things to remember with your people. And it doesn't have to be your spouse. It can be friends, family, your tribe. If you are challenged as to how to help lift them up, it's right on your hand. 5, how can I help you? 4, I'm proud of you. 3, I love you. Love you, man. 2, thank you. 1, whee!
Those are awesome. I love that. I'm still reeling from the other reframe that you offered. My entire world just like.
Batman's still throwing bananas. Well, looks like we're going to be able to get up to the last one. If you guys don't have any more questions or things you'd like to share on that simple little count to 5. Best case scenario. Oh, the ways we can go with this. And I wish I would have gotten the name of the person who posted this on Instagram. They should get some credit for that. And it was, how different can your life be if you would wake up every morning and go, what is the best case scenario of everything that can happen today? What is the best case scenario that can happen in everything? And you guys have heard me say how many times now, in the quantum of possibilities, best case scenario has the same capacity as worst case scenario. It just depends on which one you feed the most energy. Why do lucky people get to be so lucky? Well, because everything that they post that luck on would be best case scenario, right? Tomorrow I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. Why? Best case scenario, we're all retiring this year. And it can be anything. I was having a discussion again with one of my clients about this, and I brought up, do you realize you can best case scenario everything? Everything, even things that would seem devastating. If you heard that somebody just had a car crash, you can best case scenario that, because there is a best case scenario to a car crash. So again, I dare anybody to come to me with a scenario where there is not a best case scenario possible that can be thought up.
There's two sides to everything. So it's always possible.
Yes. Oh, and Jay just shared, love that movie, The Secret of Luck. I have not seen that or heard of it.
Is that the Darren Brown one?
Guess we'll find out. Yes.
Yeah, it's really good. I think Elijah mentioned it earlier in a different week. It is a really good.
And sometimes it's hard, I think, for us to accept that some of these changes are so easy and so simple, and the answers are so profound in such a simple way. You're like, can't be that simple. And sure enough, somebody will prove that it is. And so, best case scenario thinking, the possibility of what it can do for all of us is incredible. And that's why I teach a lot of my clients. I also got this probably from an Instagram. Is as soon as you wake up, and it can be whatever time you wake up, because sometimes I'll wake up 3, 4, 5, 12 times in a night. But when you wake up and you know that you're going to be getting up and you're not dreaming, first thing I like to do is tell myself what day it is and that it's going to be an amazing day. And if there are certain things that I know that I've got to do that day, and I get to do this today. Today is Tuesday. It's going to be a flippin' amazing day. I get to work with a couple of clients and help them out, and I get to do triple T with my tribe. It's going to be a killer day. And now I add, and all the best case scenarios are going to pop up. Now, I still haven't reached that level of some of those people that are mildly annoying that can pop out of bed and they're like, hey, good morning. It's going to be a wonderful day. Let's attack. And I'm like, coffee. Best case scenario, that coffee is going to be just the way I like it. Yes. Okay, coffee's done. Back to your happy squirrel. Yes, aren't you happy it's a yes. Lenora.
I there are so many things that I noticed when you had initially brought up the idea of actresses on stage and what the filter is that's coming up. So people will say, well, I'm just lying to myself, or I'm just that's a lie. That's also a filter. That's also an actress or actor on stage that's blocking you from receiving that as a defender and a protector of, we don't want to, we're trying to prep them for disappointment because they're really used to it. And I hear things very differently when I notice how I heard it. And I then have to think about it going, okay, well, is that true? Is this serving me? And if I can prime myself that says, and the best possible scenarios are going to continue to unfold throughout my day, yes, it feels better. And it feels better to you who's sending out that vibration and who's also receiving that energy. So it's just something I had noticed with those former actresses now taking their seats.
Yeah. And start asking them, fine, what's the best case scenario? And I've asked many people, clients and people, you know, what's the first thing they like to tell you? All the ways it's not going to work. Well, thank you, Dr. Sunshine. Here's a challenge. What are the ways that it could work? What are the ways it might work? Remember how I talk about the power of the word might? Because the word might gives the person permission to be wrong without feeling judged. Any other questions, epiphanies, ahas, angles we would like to put on this?
That was an awesome one.
Here's a quick question. Who are my coffee drinkers here? What do you use to make your coffee?
I actually put a lot of things in my coffee. I kind of treat my coffee like it's breakfast. And so I like I like to put everything in my coffee. I put sometimes I'll use coconut oil, sometimes I'll use ghee, sometimes I'll use butter. Sometimes I'll, put like just different kinds of fats and things into my coffee. And it really holds me over for quite a long time. So that's what I do with my coffee. And I really, really love my coffee in the morning. It's just like comforting and makes me feel loved.
How do you make your coffee? Do you use a French press? Do you have a fancy Italian espresso maker? Do you use...
I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little ashamed to admit this, but I get really lazy when it comes to actually making coffee. And I know it's not supposedly not good for me, but I just use the instant coffee because it takes like 2 seconds.
Hey, I have a family member who makes hers with instant coffee. You know who I'm talking to. Yes. And that's okay. Because if that's how you like it, I've got a one of those bin holders for the beans that does the fresh grind, and then I do a French press. Only because there was a deal on TV where they, I don't know if it was 2020 or something like that, where they were, today's special is coffee, and we're going to find out how do the top brass of all these coffee companies make their coffee at home. And about 60 to 70% of them used a French press. And then about 10 of them showed how much money they flip and make because they had this, yeah, this is my $12,000 French. I had it shipped here and it's all solid brass, espresso maker. And then there were just a few of them that still used the standard drip, Mr. Coffee in the morning, which of course we're like, you're the head of Folgers and you use a Mr. Coffee. But the bottom line is, how does it make you feel when you take that cup in the morning and you go, the day's already starting good. Yes. Oh, you did a sippy sip and you're like, oh yes, the day's even better now. And oh, one more sip. Oh, the day's even better now. So, best case scenario, how do you want to start your day? How do you look at that cup of coffee? And I used to put dark chocolate almond milk in my coffee. There's only one problem when you get really used to having dark chocolate almond milk as your coffee supplement, is when you're not home. How many people have dark chocolate? And it had to be the right one because when the store didn't have the right one, the other ones were like, close. Now we've got a half a gallon to get through of this. And there were a couple of times where I ain't gonna lie, I'm like, it's $3. We've drank $1.50 of it. The rest of the $1.50 can be donated to something else, some other cause, because ours is back in stock. We don't have to submit ourselves to this morning of, So I just finally started drinking it straight black. Yeah, you know why? Because when I go on vacation, what's the easiest way to order it? Straight black. I'm like, oh, this tastes just like home. Oh, yes. Oh, it's a good day. This is a wonderful day. I am so happy today. I'm on vacay and I got black coffee just like I have at home, except I'm not home. All right, well, that gives us 6 minis to the top of the hour, and we don't have to go all the way to the top. Anybody want to share anything else from the 3 topics of today? We had the when you get what you ask for, count to 5, or best case scenario. Also, set up your business to sell. And Jade's like, set up your business to sell? Oh? That's what happens when you join the meeting late. And that's okay, because you're here, and that's the most important.
I'll just rewatch it on YouTube later.
Ta-da! Solution. Best case scenario, right? Best case scenario. It's
And you'll get an
recorded.
extra like too, so.
Whee! Yes, for all of those in YouTube land, please share this. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, click the like, leave comments, and then leave comments on your comments. This, Lenora.
I found it so interesting how you had reframed. You didn't get you, or I can't even, I have to flip back. you got what you were asking for, but you're not done asking it. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I've definitely had the experience of I didn't get what I asked for, or it's not coming, or I'm not good enough, and just so many other things that have come up with it. And I love the way that you effectively use the word but, and that you're not done asking yet, to help clarify. And it's just still exploding in my brain.
Oh, hold on to your cap feathers, because a squirrel just delivered another message regarding that.
Okay.
It's kind of like going to a restaurant and ordering food. And you ordered the meal and it showed up and it was amazing. Are you done ordering? No, that was today. Tomorrow, you can order something else, and it doesn't have to be the same thing. You can order another plate that is just as amazing. Can you believe it? Holy banana peels Batman. Bananas Foster, banana peanut butter sandwich, like banana. Yes, Jade.
I love how food is how we take in our nutrition, but also it can be symbolic for how we're receiving everything in the world, and how you can put your order in for really anything, even little things. Which I have this, if we have time, I have this little funny story that happened to me yesterday that relates to this in a way.
Good. Time right now.
Something that I really, really enjoy is like, you could call it whatever you want, whether like little synchronicities or things like that. They're very entertaining to me. And so it was the night before yesterday, I was doing a meditation. I was having a conversation in my meditation. I don't know who this person was, but he was communicating some stuff to me, and he started saying some random things, and I was like, haha, what does that mean? And he's like, I don't know. But one of the things that was communicated to me was about a movie. And I had heard the movie name The Dark Horse, and I had never heard of it before or anything. So I Google it and I look it up. I go on YouTube and I watch the trailer. And the other thing that he had said to me, and it just, again, I was laughing because I was like, what does that even mean? And he had said something about a cat with red eyes. And so I'm watching this trailer on YouTube. It doesn't mean anything to me, although the concept of the movie was cool because it was a teacher who had a mental, he actually was a man who had a mental breakdown. It's a real story. And he ends up teaching kids how to play chess and go to a tournament. So I look, and then underneath the trailer video, there's another video, and it's called The Dark Horse, and it's Katy Perry's music video. So I click on it, and because I'm just a curious person, and next thing you know, I see Katy Perry, and she's playing Isis, I believe, the goddess, in the video, and there's two cats on either side of her with red eyes. And I start laughing hysterically. So that day, it gets even funnier. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this because I took a picture of it, but I'm driving down the street and I'm playing the song again because it's a very catchy song and I really like it. And all of a sudden, in the music video, as it's playing on my dash, there's this silly scene where Katy Perry's eating hot Cheetos and she puts the hot Cheeto in her mouth. And as soon as she puts the hot Cheeto in her mouth, I look up and I see this orange car in front of me. And it says Cheeto. So like, for me, like that's a huge form of just receiving your order in life. And like those little funny like synchronicities that can just be there just to entertain you and just make you laugh and enjoy the experience. So I wanted to share that because I thought it was really funny. But we, set, like you said, when we put in our order, we can set our intention that we'll have these kinds of things happen, and just experience, and it makes the experience a lot more playful and fun.
Absolutely. That's why for a number of my clients who are dealing with depression, one of the first things I have them do is get a day planner, keep it by their bed, and at the end of the night, they write down a minimum of 3 cool things they remember from the day. And I had a free consult today, and my client said, well, yeah, I like gratitude books. I said, no, this isn't a gratitude book. That would be another one. This is simply 3 cool things you remember, like what you just described. Or walking down the sidewalk and have a hummingbird go, and for 2.1 seconds, you and that hummingbird are like, doot, 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 and then off it goes, and you're like, well, that was cool. Now you can write down in your gratitude book, I'm grateful for hummingbirds, but this is to help build that muscle of noticing all the cool stuff around us, because we are pre-programmed to notice all of the bad things, because it's much safer, it's much healthier to mistake a stick for a snake than it is to mistake a snake for a stick. And we forget that stick kind of looked like a snake. That was kind of cool. Because that was a best case scenario, right? I saw an item. It could be a snake. It could be a stick. Best case scenario was it was a stick that looked like a snake. How cool is that? Took it home and I put it on the mantle of my fireplace. And when people come home, they're like, ah, a snake. No, it's a stick. Kind of cool though. Gotcha. And when it stops looking like a snake, firewood. Yes, Lenora.
I love that story, Jade. That was awesome. And I love the idea of writing stuff down, especially the 3 cool things. And here's why. I am someone who had a very difficult time learning to trust herself and learning to actually not just take what I like, what you had in a meditation, Jade, and then come out and be like, oh, it was just, I just got lucky. Like, having that defense of don't get your hopes up. No, you can't trust yourself. Like there was always a barrier, and it's definitely started to shift lately, which I'm super excited about. And it's so funny when the universe gives you signs. And I was traveling and it had given me like this flash of a sign. And just the other day over the weekend, I was in a specific area and I was thinking something, and I was definitely in a bad space. And I look up and I read the back of this woman's sweatshirt, and it says, adjust your crown, because I was not in the headspace of where I had wanted to be. And the fact that the sweatshirt had said that, I don't like taking pictures of people. I think it's like super weird, especially when you're like, hold on, I'm in the middle of an amusement park. Let me take this random person's picture. But it's one of those things where you make mental notes of it to remind yourself that you can trust yourself. You're not going crazy. You're not just making shit up. And there was something else that I was going to add. And it was something that it just keeps echoing in my head. Yes, you can trust yourself. Yes, this is more proof that you can trust yourself. That's what it was. I sometimes think that there's like little universal gnomes, because had you looked up maybe another second later, it could have been a completely different code on the back of that license plate. It could have been a completely different message on the back of the sweatshirt. So I love that it happens, and it's so important to take notice when it happens. Thank you for sharing that, Jay.
Jade.
I wanted to add in there too, because what you said about writing it down in your journal at the end of the day, you're right. That's like such a good reprogramming tool, because when you write, you're accessing your subconscious mind, and also you're allowing your mind to become more open to those possibilities as well, so that you're looking for them. But that movie that I had mentioned earlier, what was it called? The Secret of Luck. In that movie, that's part of what they're talking about is your openness. And they're talking about how people who are more open spot those, like you said, if I would have looked up however many minutes later, if I wouldn't have looked directly at it right there, I might have completely missed it. And so that's part of what they were talking about is with luck, is that the openness to even that idea allows you to start to spot those things in your environment and to receive it and take it in. And so I really like that idea of writing it down every single day. The other thing I think as well is that when it comes to what we're telling ourselves. So for example, when people say I'm not lucky, right? And they're programming themselves, they stop looking for it. And I remember when I was a child, I may have had a little bit of an obsessive tendency, but I was really obsessed with finding 4-leaf clovers. And I bet you how many people in their life can say that they've found 7 4-leaf clovers, but I have. And it's because I was open to it and I was looking for that. It's not like, oh, I got lucky. No, it's that I was open and I was looking for it. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. And Squirrel delivered 2 things quick before we move into the next hour, especially off what Lenora said. When you see people that are wearing shirts like that and stuff, actually go up and say, wow, can I please take a picture of that? I've had that happen. I wear t-shirts like that. And I've had people that it makes you feel cool. It's a good feeling. You get the same rush off of it. And especially when they're like, that shirt is so amazing. Can I take a picture of it? A, you got the recording of it right there. And B, you've given them validation that that was a cool shirt. You don't have to even go into the story of what makes it cool. Yeah, and the second thing the squirrel dropped off was, have you heard the rest of my story on that, on the day planner part about the kids, Jade?
I don't think so. I'd love to hear it though.
Okay, so one of my clients, she had 2 boys, and I got her she was dealing with some stuff, divorce, blah, blah, blah. And so I got her into doing this, and she thought, wouldn't it be cool if I made this my nightly routine with my boys, even though the youngest one isn't good at writing. I said, they can draw a picture. What are 3 cool things that you remember from the day? Draw a little picture of it. And this went on for it'd been about a year, a little bit longer, since I had taught her this, and it was part of her routine now with her boys. And she called me up. She's like, thank you. I've got to share this with you. One night, they did the thing, go to bed. She's in her room, and there's a little knock on the door. She opens up the door, and it's her oldest, and he goes, Mom, how come I can only write down 3 things? And she goes, honey, you can write down as many as you want. He goes, oh, cool. And she said from that night on, he would write down all these things. She said he sees so much cool stuff But that's not why she called. She said, this isn't the only reason I'm calling you. She said, yesterday, somebody stole his bicycle. And he goes, yeah, they stole my bicycle, but I hope whoever got it takes really good care of it and gets a lot of really good use out of it. By the way, I saw this really cool owl today. The kid lost his bike at that age. That's your everything. And he has evolved already. I hope he takes care of it. I hope he gets good use out of it. And by the way, I saw a really cool owl today. She said nothing phases him. Everything is cool. All he sees is cool. Yay!
That's really, really amazing. And for just the purpose of, if anybody's listening who has, I don't know, has any kids or has ever struggled with something with their child, that story actually reminds me, years ago, my son used to hate going to school. And every morning was such a struggle to get him to go to school. And at that time, I hadn't learned a lot about how to deal with those kinds of things. So it was more of an experimentation, I guess. But I wanted him to start to look for things that made him happy or made him enjoy himself, so that it wasn't like going to school was this horrible thing and then coming out of school was like nothing good happened. Like it was terrible, right? And so I decided to do a sort of reward system with him where if he got so many smiley faces, so if he could find one, just starting out with just one, positive thing, one thing he enjoyed during the day, he would get a smiley face. And at the end of the week, if he got, so many smiley faces, then he would get to go to the $5 store or something and get a reward for it. And so it was really interesting because it worked so well that today I don't do any rewards or anything for him. And he never complains about going to school. He gets excited to go to school. He enjoys being with his friends at school and playing. And when he gets out of school, he'll tell me the good things that happened during the day. And the shift was so huge. So I wanted to mention that because if there is anybody struggling with that, it just goes to show how such a significant change can happen and just the mindset and how important that shift is in the mindset, because that's going to set somebody up for what kind of experience they're going to have in life. And so if they're looking for things that they're grateful for and the positive things, those moments that we're going to have that things don't feel so good are a lot easier to deal with, and we get through them a lot faster. So
amen. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lenora.
I love that you shared that, Jade. When TJ had first mentioned this on Triple T and a while back, I started to ask my students every time they would come to class, what are 3 cool things that happened to you over the weekend? What are 3 cool things? Tell me 3. What are 3 favorite things? And what is shocking is that there are kids that were just nothing. And it's kind of pulling teeth to try and get them. And I go down to well, did you have something cool to eat? What was your favorite food that you had? Or did you watch a cool movie? What video did you find? And helping them sort through things that did excite them, because they can come in very, very sad and very withdrawn. So really trying to point out to them things that they can get excited about. And, oh, that was really cool. So it's definitely a shift. And it's so important to help them wire themselves that way, because they really don't. There are people that have no idea, and that's okay. But to do as much as we can when we do know something like that, to share it with people. And I'm so curious as to how many friends he's inspired without even knowing it.
Yep. Now, this is supposed to be your guys' hour, so we can talk about whatever you want. That's how this works. So, who's got, we can keep talking about this. I love this topic, obviously. Jade, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to actually respond to what Lenora said about uh how many friends he's inspired. Um, that's actually a really good topic, I think, because he has two really close friends in particular, but one of his friends at the beginning of the year was so withdrawn and scared of everything. I mean, everything. And at the end of the year, just being friends with Gio, that's my son's name, he has changed so much. He actually got an award in the class for how much change has happened. And I know that's because of a lot of different things as well. But even, for example, we went to the park, and you guys have probably seen my son is obsessed with catching lizards. He's an amazing, like, pro lizard hunter. And his friend would have never touched a lizard, but yet because Gio was holding it and he saw him holding it, he's like, okay, well, let me get a little closer, a little close. Okay, I'll hold it. And so a lot of really positive changes has happened. And, you know, that's something that's even happened in my life. I went through a lot of struggles in the past. And I remember sometimes my sister, if I was having like a down moment, she's like, Jade, just keep going, because you don't even realize the people that you're affecting around you. I have people that like have seen where you started to where you are now, and they are like, wow, that makes me feel like I can do that in their life. And they've created their own businesses and stuff now, and left, for example, really difficult relationships and made a lot of really positive changes. And she always reminds me, we don't see the ripple effect that what we have does, but it definitely has a way larger effect than we think that it does.
That goes right back to you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Gio brought his friend up. Be very cognizant of who you hang out with the most. Listen to how they talk. Notice how they live. Notice what they drive. All the above. It's a monstrous world out there. Yes, Lenora, top 5 people you follow perhaps as well. Yes. What do you listen to? What's on your feed? It cracked me up when I used to bring up Facebook, and I had a few people, it's just a bunch of trash, and da 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 da. I went, that's your collection of people that you've put together. I said, my collection, my feed is predominantly positive, self-help, self-work, business, stuff like that, because that's who I choose to follow. Choose to. And it's also why now one of my protocols for my clients is their journal, one of their 3 journals: your person, your tribe, your income. What do you want out of a tribe? People who, people like, people that do. How do they talk? Do they talk about their hourly wage or their portfolio? Do they talk about what they just spent their money on or what their investments are? I learned that from Tony Robbins and a few others. And it makes you T. Harv Eker, millionaire mindset. One of the things he talked about was you want to make more money, go drive yourself to the most expensive place where you live and go into the most expensive country club or nightclub or whatever restaurant. And if all you can afford is a soft drink or a cup of coffee, yes, it'll be a $20 cup of coffee, sit there and do research. Watch the people. How do they dress? How do they act? If you can sit somewhere where you're in the middle of a lot of people, how do they talk to each other? What are their conversations like? What are their conversations about? Pay attention to that, because that's who you may inspire to become. Get inside of that energy. Introduce yourself to a couple of them. You might find out they're actually nice people. And then find ways to hang out with them as much as possible. Ask for advice. Learn from them. Because then you become one of the five, and they lift you up. I know. I've been extremely blessed. I've traveled and I've got a mom will verify. I've been in with the good crowds, I've been with the shady crowds, I've been with the party crowds, I've been with the trendsetter crowds. And that's how you get a lot of the information that you're getting out of me, because I've hung out, I've done, I've been, I've lived, but I've moved on. It would have been extremely easy for me to stay where I grew up, nothing against it, but I wouldn't have had the opportunity to share a tenth with you. Mom will verify. I've scared her a couple of times. You're doing what? You're going where? Well, she learned to stop asking how. She just knew that if I said I was going to do it, came home, Mom, I'm going to go to Europe. But honey, you're only 20, about to be 21. Yep, I'm going to go to Europe all by myself for a year. Not to a school, not to some formulated setup thing, on a work program for 3 months, and then I'm going to find something else to do. And I did it for a year, traveled around. And I don't say that to boast or impress, but to impress upon you. There's a huge world out there. And one of the coolest parts about showing up in a brand new place, nobody knows who you are. And they have so they can't have any expectations of you. The person that you become or that you are there is based 100% on who you show them you are.
And you can change it any day you like and be somebody completely different the next day with a different group of people. And it's fun to be somebody different.
Yes. until you find your groove and your tribe. Now, the challenge part there is where you pick to land. Because there are some certain parts of the country there where it's kind of hard to pick that crowd of eagles, because there's probably a lot of turkeys. And for those of you that think I'm making fun of your neighbor or your tribe, stop typing. Or you're probably not typing. Still, I've known some very amazing millionaires who talk like that, with that accent. But they still talk about investments, portfolios, and things that they built and the people that they hang out with. And they still make fun of that one family member that doesn't get it, because we all kind of have that one family member. I hate to say it, but so, any other ahas, epiphanies, add-ons to that? And what else? I know we got some topics on there. We got some questions. A couple of people went hiding. They must have known I was about to ask.
One of the things that I'd like to bring up is, the people we hang out with, some of them have got really fabulous qualities, and also maybe some qualities that we don't like so much. So, being able to be selective about what we take away from the interactions with other people can be an interesting focus, I believe. Any comments?
Yeah, in second hour, so you guys go first. Go ahead, Jade, please.
I agree with that 100%. Different people might feel different things about that in particular, but it's always been kind of my idea that if I can sort of neutralize myself to some of the things that I don't like so much, I can really take away the things that I do enjoy. And that might mean that sometimes certain people are going to fit into certain areas of your life. So for example, you might have one friend who's like, that's your party friend, right? But you don't call them for advice, and you don't, that's not the one that you're going to rely on for that kind of support when you need a crying shoulder. So you have to make sure, because, and sometimes that happens where we will try to put people into the wrong roles that fit for them in our life. And then that can actually end up causing ourselves a problem, and we might think that we're having the same thing happen over and over again, where why is my friend never there for me? Well, we didn't pick the right person for that role. So I really, really like that idea a lot. And something you mentioned just a moment ago about being able to, in different places, express yourself in different ways and become whoever it is you want. And I would highly suggest this to anyone, because I had so much fun doing it. But one of my friends and I, what we would do sometimes is we would just go somewhere, maybe like out to eat or something. And for the night, she would pick a role to give me, and I would pick a role for her. And we would act as that. So, and sometimes it would even be, for example, an angry person. So we would act all angry, and every once in a while we'd just crack up laughing because it was so funny. But that, being able to like step into that role and allow yourself to express it in a way, but in a way that's fun, is a really good practice.
Absolutely, Jade. I mean, having that skill is so much fun, gives you so much expanded horizon of how you see things, how you take problems on board yourself, because you can flip who you are when you're reacting to whatever situation is out there and what experience you're facing. And, I have moments when I'm really uptight, but I've got some friends who are really, really laid back. And when I put myself in their persona for a little while, problems just don't worry me. You can just work through it. It's okay. And particularly, like I said, I'm involved with emergency services, and these firefighters, they are just so cool with these huge flames, and they don't worry. And here's me thinking, holy moly. And I've got this wonderful example, and I do take it on from time to time. I wish I was better at it, but I'm practicing and it's fun.
And this comes straight out of my class, Identity Management University. If you can act it out, you have the ingredients inside of you to be that person if you decide that's who you want to be. The challenge is holding it long enough to where that is the person that you become. And Fran, when you were talking about how the guys are so laid back in some of those deals, they're probably thinking best case scenario, right? Because if you're a firefighter, the last thing you need in your head is what is worst case scenario. Best case scenario, we're going to knock this fire out. Nobody's going to get hurt. Nobody's going to die. We're going to be able to save as much of the structure as possible. The person that did get hurt, best case scenario, we've got to them in time. It'll be an easy thing to heal. They'll heal 100%, all the above. Because the rest of the training will always be there. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, yeah, exactly, Elijah. It's like managing an abreaction before you get to it. What is best case scenario? Go ahead, Fran.
One of the sayings that we get repeated to us a lot is hurry up and slow down. So, you get there fast and then you just slow down and assess the situation so you don't rush in with the adrenaline pumping. Yes. And it's a good phrase for life, a good view on life, get there quickly, be there, but then slow down and observe the big picture so you know where you're stepping in and that what you do will be effective.
And the people that have that ability are typically the best managers of disaster. I've been in a number of those situations, and each time that I was in those situations, time slowed to a crawl. I had a major fatal accident happen right in front of me. And as it happened, everything went, and I was able to pull off to the side of the freeway, walk right across the freeway. Cars still weren't slowing down, but I could see the cars coming in such a manner that I wasn't worried. I knew I had enough time to walk over and start assessing what was going on to help people. And I've talked to a number of people that have been in, I'm friends with EMTs and firefighters and cops and all the above. And the ones that are best under those situations have all at some point alluded to the fact that when the feces hits the rotating oscillator, everything goes, and they can think things through at a cognitive rate. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and now I've gone and lost it, that when you're suddenly faced with an emergency, I mean, the first thing that does is you go into amygdala response, amygdala hijack, the fight or flight. Holy shoot, everything's hit the fan. What the heck are you going to do? Your mind just sort of goes, well, my mind anyway, goes into, oh, heck, I don't know what to do. And it happens with a lot of people. But certainly what we're involved with in this group and with emergency services, you develop the skill to actually change gear so that you're no longer in that panic situation. And so that then you can start dealing with the situation. I mean, this is really helpful with things like panic attacks with our clients and so on, or extreme anxiety, to actually be able to flip off that amygdala hijack. And one of the easy ways is, attend to your breathing and allow the feelings just to calm down, or counting. If you actually count your breaths in and out slowly, the act of counting kind of gets over that amygdala hijack, and then your brain will start working again. And that's part of the hurry up and slow down. You hurry up with all the adrenaline pumping, and then you stop, calm down, then you can see the big picture. And in that state, you're actually in an expanded state of awareness, which is really useful because you can focus on what's happening all around you if you just take that moment of calm after the amygdala rush, hijack, and then you can actually have a wider, more expanded, more useful view of the whole situation.
Yeah.
Anybody else like to add to that?
I agree with that so much as far as the expanded view, because even just, being a therapist, sometimes a client will, have an emotion come up and trigger, and sometimes there's transference going on and counter transference. And I think anybody who's a therapist knows that it's sort of about being able to develop that ability to be able to expand your awareness so that you can be aware of multiple things happening at once and be able to sort of slow things down a little bit so that you can keep your awareness on one thing while also having your awareness on another thing. And so you're holding all of these things at the same time.
Yep.
Brilliant. And that's TJ's awareness, with slowing down time. That is in that same state when you can sort of have that expanded awareness and that expanded time. And it's a really useful thing to use in your everyday life as well. Practice.
Well, and I also teach it to my athletes. One of the things that, they think they've got to get all jacked up and they're gonna go out onto the field and they're just gonna be and I went, just once, I want you to try calm, focus. And I teach them what we call hakalau, where they are allowed to expand their vision 360. And a couple of them, they said it was so funny because it threw off their opponent so much. Because their opponent is especially a couple of my football players, their opponent is all like, I'm gonna rip your head off, and they come up and they're just like, and their time slows down, and they can actually see their opponent starting to move, and it's like, and they're like, and all I had to do, I could tell just what their angle was. One push, and I had them off to the side, and I'd have people coming behind trying to tackle me, and I could see them behind me and just move. And everything was slow, and I went, what a concept. You mean when you weren't all jacked sideways and running around, you could actually start focusing on the game? Yeah. So, and the other thing I was going to add, the craziest time for me is after the event when I know everybody's safe. That's typically when I have the adrenaline overload. that's when I have to go sit down and I'm like, okay, everything's fine. I'm like, okay, breathe, shake it off, learn from the animal planet, get out there and shake your body and get it out so that you can get back to living.
I'm so grateful you said that, TJ, because it was a long time ago, but my eldest daughter contracted meningitis and it was pretty touch and go for a while. And when the crisis was over, for even up to 4 weeks afterwards, I was just really peculiar and struggling. And, the crisis was over, but I was having weird thoughts in my head and weird compulsions. It sounds a bit dramatic, but having these flash weird thoughts and being able to accept that as, I guess, a shock reaction to having had to be on such high alert with such a dire situation. Yeah, we don't tend to recognize that and allow for that in people's recovery, I guess. I hadn't heard about it before.
Yep. Jade?
Yeah, 100% with that. And I think it's, physical traumas can be similar to even emotional traumas. And yet, we understand that when somebody gets in an accident or something or gets sick, that they have time that they have to recover from that. And sometimes we don't look at that on an emotional level. And what TJ just mentioned about, shaking, that actually happened to me the other day where I heard somebody yelling. I had to go sit in my car and let myself shake. And it's a natural animal sort of response to process out all of the adrenaline that's came up. But what we tend to do is we tense our muscles and we don't breathe properly and we try to fight it because it feels uncomfortable. And you suggest to anybody, if they ever do have that experience, just breathe and surrender into it and allow your body just to shake wherever it does so that it can process it.
It's one of the things that I teach a lot of the EMTs and law enforcement when they show up on an accident scene, because out here we've got a kind of a dangerous area on our road right in front of our house. And one night we were just about asleep and my wife heard a horrendous crash and she's like, there was a car accident. Got dressed, went out there. Sure enough, it was a head-on. Luckily, nobody died, but there were 3 people that were part of the process. And one, it basically happened where we're at. You go down a dip, you come back up, and then you curve off to the side. This bonehead, as they're going down, decides he's going to pass her because she's not going fast enough. And another truck came over the top of the hill, and there they are, 3 vehicles on a 2-lane highway, no turning lane or anything in the middle. And he tried to swerve back in. She slammed her brakes so he didn't sideswipe her. And the 2 vehicles, or no, he went off to the ditch, and the 2 trucks hit passenger side so hard that they sheared off the front tires, broke the brake rotors in pieces, and nobody got hurt. But the first thing I did when I showed up, when I saw them, I said, okay, look at me. The worst is over and you survived. Say that to me. The worst is over and I've survived. And I made them say it a couple of times while they were looking at me. And then I said, yes, the worst is over and you've survived. So what are you going to do with your life tomorrow? And it immediately brought them down that by the time law enforcement and EMT showed up, they're just walking around waiting to give their story, their statement. They'd already called family members and were able to talk understandably. because sometimes you have to, when in those situations, you have to let them know part of them is still in the accident. It's still happening over and over and over and over. No, you survived. Worst is over. And I'll get to you, Fran, in just a second. I wanted to make sure that those watching on YouTube and watching the recording who don't see the comments, Elijah put in something really good on here is take the time to look at 4 to 5 different things or objects in your immediate environment over like 15 seconds or so, and just let your focus land on them and take in those few observations. It'll help ground you, and then you can proceed. That's super cool. Thank you for sharing that, Elijah. So, Fran.
Yeah. Well, look, this is a long ago now, but I was really curious about the intrusive thoughts I had in my recovery period, which actually lasted, from memory, round about 4 weeks after this very intense week, 10 days of, facing the possibility my daughter might be dying in front of me, and then slowly recovering. And they were really unpleasant, intrusive thoughts. If you had a client now that came to you with intrusive thoughts, they knew they were irrational, but they still had these intrusive, impulsive thoughts. I was driving to and from the hospital and had the urge to drive into a large tree at one stage. And I could almost feel myself arguing with myself, hanging onto the steering wheel about not actually driving into this large tree. And just the intrusive thoughts were quite scary. I kind of tried to get to the point of thinking, okay, this is just a shock reaction. Go with the flow. Don't try and do anything. If you're a basket case, why not make baskets? So I learned to make baskets. So anybody else, what would you do about intrusive thoughts that, you don't know where they come from, but they're not helpful?
Well, I definitely have something for that, but I want to give everybody else a chance to go first. Anybody got something for Fran?
Say something about that. I was going to say something about what you were talking about before, but let me say something about what Fran was saying. I've found that there's kind of 2 ways to deal with that. I think it depends on the type of intrusive thoughts that a person's happening. But one of the ways I think is to first recognize that we're not our body, we're not our thoughts. It's kind of asking that question, well, who am I, right? And if we keep asking that question over and over again, eventually we're going to get to, just pure consciousness, and everything exists in consciousness. And so within consciousness, you're going to find every thought, right? And I remember as a kid, I had a lot of anger. And so I had to recognize that, just because I was thinking certain thoughts didn't mean anything about me, for example. And sometimes it might just be thoughts in the stream of consciousness, though I don't think that's always the best way to deal with that. Because sometimes that can actually not work for someone. I think sometimes it actually serves us to look at the intrusive thoughts and what they're trying to communicate and why, and to actually engage with it. I think sometimes when we're having certain thoughts, whether it's like anxiety or fear, thoughts that are attached to those things, I think it's really important to look at it, because if we try to just push it away or ignore it, it tends to be that, the part of ourself that's trying to communicate to us is going to turn that up even louder as far as the actual emotion that we're feeling about it. And what really needs to happen is for us to be able to look directly at it and accept it, so that we can begin to neutralize it, because it works better when we, instead of trying to reject things that we're feeling or thinking if we're able to accept and merge with it. I find that works a lot better.
When bringing my mind back to way back then, if I'd actually engaged with that thought, I think it would have felt like it was dragging me down, and I would have been more vulnerable to the urge to drive into the tree, because the urge was there as with the thought. It wasn't just, oh, you could drive into the tree. It was really almost struggling with the steering wheel.
100%.
And if I'd engaged with that thought, I think, it felt like the thought was stronger than me. If I'd engaged with it, that it would have kind of propagated that.
I probably would suggest people just to do that if they don't know what they're doing. I think that's why we tend to try to avoid things, because when we have really intense emotions, it's actually a protection mechanism to avoid it. So for example, we'll use coping, which even our emotions can be coping. So for example, anxiety to run or anger to fight can be coping mechanisms for what's underneath it, which is a lot of times a sense of powerlessness to what we're experiencing. And when you're, for example, driving or when you're in public, that might not be the safest place to deal with those emotions and to go into that state. So that's why we tend to go to other emotions that are in a higher vibrational frequency than those ones underneath. And so I think during being in a therapeutic room where you're working with someone can be really helpful when engaging with those, because you're in a safe environment to be able to look at that stuff instead of like on the road and in the middle of it, right?
Good answer. Thank you.
Lenora?
Fran, especially when those intrusive thoughts come in, I completely agree with Jade about making sure that you're in a safer place, so not necessarily on the road. In that, it seems like, especially because with HMR, you have a single event. So technically you could say, oh, well, my daughter getting sick was a single event, but it wasn't. It was a level 2. So it wasn't a level 1, it was level 2, and it split off and it had multiple things connected to it. And then it keeps activating all these other emotional states. So in that case, for me, my first thought was to talk with somebody about the entire experience, because it wasn't just one experience. It was everything else that was activated and also in a response to that. The other thing is, as when you can separate it as much as possible. So what I've actually done in the past, when I've had certain things come up and I'm on the road, I will literally stop the car and I will write, and I will have a straight up conversation back and forth, because it's easier for me to, if I have the time, I don't always have the time, but if I can have the time, to stop in that moment, because it's so intense in that moment and it might not cycle back through for a really long time. And I want to capture it when I can. So that's why I tend to write it out, but I also separate it out as, okay, give it a voice and go into all the emotional components of it, especially when there's a life-threatening component involved. It's not necessarily that you had a persona, you had a part, which is different than a persona.
Awesome. Holly?
So a couple things on this. Viktor Frankl, I can't remember which book it is. He has an entire chapter on this sort of thing. And obviously people who've been through trauma, it might be more of a trauma response, but if you have OCD, it's very common for people to have terror that they're going to kill somebody, terror that they're going to get hit by a car every time they go out of the house, terror that they're going to pass out, they're going to, all sorts of things. So a couple things. First of all, is recognizing that voice is not you. And so if the voice of authority, where you point to where you're hearing the voice and then maybe move it to somewhere else, make it into the Daffy Duck kind of or Donald Duck or whatever, kind of a cartoonish sound, play funny music. Those can be some great ways to deal with it. But another thing that Dr. Frankl says, now, obviously for something like driving into a tree or something, you probably wouldn't want to do this, but if you're afraid you're going to pass out because you're so embarrassed, you actually want to go into the fear, because you're proving to yourself that it's not real. You're proving to yourself that it's, because 9 times out of 10 for most people, it's not real. Now, it's important to know that, but he says what he trains people to do is actually to a room and try to pass out. Try to make yourself as embarrassed as you possibly can. Push yourself to that limit. Throw up in public. Try to pass out in public. And he says, even if you do, you're still going to see that the worst case scenario is not as bad as you imagined it to be, because your life is not over just because you passed out in public. But 9 times out of 10, you also won't. And by taking your fear to that level, you'll realize, oh, this isn't actually as compelling as I thought it was.
Awesome. And just before Jade, I want to read what Elijah put up. What you resist persists. It's important to acknowledge the thoughts' existence, but remember that we don't need to follow them. Definitely need to keep in mind, it's like if the person in the passenger seat told you to do something, you're like, okay, that's a shitty idea. And you don't have to follow it. I've got a few other things, but I like having you guys go first, and we're almost out of time. So Jade, real quick.
Yeah, just really quick. I was going to say what Lenore was saying is really, really important, actually, because one of the best things to do is parts work around that, because there's, for example, in that experience Fran was having, there's a part of her that was using that thought, it hadn't turned into a behavior yet, right? But had an intention behind it. And usually the intention behind it is to stop you from feeling pain. And I know that might sound strange in this situation because, when you think about suicide or dying, that's more pain, right? But when you're in a situation where it feels like a lose-lose situation where there's pain on either side, then it tends to be that we'll choose the thing that feels less painful. And so engaging with the different parts of ourselves to find out what the intention is behind it, we can be a lot more loving when a thought like that comes up towards the actual thought. And that can actually shift a person's state, I think, as well. That's all.
I'd like this is all such brilliant stuff, and it's really got me thinking, and I'll definitely look what Viktor Frankl says about this too. But I'm kind of curious about, are these the sorts of intrusive thoughts that people who are having psychotic events, schizophrenia, are experiencing? Can this actually expand my understanding of what it's like, and how to help people who are having mental stability problems? Not that that's my province, but, people with extreme anxieties will be experiencing similar things. Any thoughts or comments?
Well, because we're so low on time, this is actually a perfect segue into the answer that I was going to give anyway. When I deal with clients and I've had a few that have talked about the same type of things that you're talking about, one of the first things that I'll ask them is, these thoughts, these energies, are they yours or are they somebody else's? Kind of like an energy spider web that you walk through, so that you can, even if it comes up, yeah, they're mine, you've analyzed them in a different outward location, because you have to step back and look at it and go, is this mine or is this somebody else's? The second thing that I teach them, and I usually try to teach people, especially with anxiety, phobias, and PTSD right away, is the time and date protocol. What is the exact time and date, including the year? And the fact that you can see that, you can recognize it, we can have this conversation, means that you have survived 100% of everything life has ever thrown at you. There's not one single thing from your past, and that thought that you just had, ironically, is about 6 seconds in the past, 12 seconds in the past. Now it's a minute in the past, and you survived it. And so those things are the quick fix until you can get to somebody like us who can go in and help you open up Pandora's box and find out who brought the seven-headed dragon and how many people from the trailer park did it bring with it. And Elijah put in a couple of things as well, as can it expand your understanding? She who thinks it can and she who thinks it cannot are actually both correct. And so there's a number of different ways that we can help others, but also help ourselves. I promise you, Frank, you are not the only. I've had those days too. And that's also why I'm pretty sure it was Wayne Dyer who talked about don't be jealous of others. That guy that passed you in that beautiful red BMW convertible that you're like, oh, lucky oaf, what a jerk. I wish I had a car like that. And you don't realize that he's sitting there looking at losing everything. Wife wants a divorce, and he's trying to figure out which one of the center pylons he can hit at 80 miles an hour to end it all. And so we never know what somebody is going through. Thank you, Elijah. I appreciate you as well, brother. And that takes us to the top of our hour, where those of you who are kind enough to show up every week know what I'm going to say, and I get to say it. I get to say it. I don't have to say it. I get to say it. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, because again, I can't give that back to you. So for you to invest your very precious commodity on this platform to help others, for whatever reason, we don't know why these topics come up, but I've had people reach out and tell me that that was exactly what they needed to hear. And so if you're listening in or you're watching the recording, that's why we do this. Share this with people because somebody else might need to hear it. And of course, the common YouTube stuff. Please subscribe, ring the bell, click, leave a comment, click the like, leave comments, then leave comments on your comments, and all the above. And now I get to say, love you all. Have an amazing week. Go out and make the world a better place. Be nice to each other. Be very nice to yourself because you deserve it. You're worth it. And I hope to see you back here in 7 days. Love you guys.